Hey guys, my name is Prem and I'm a solution architect at SSW. Now, over the course of my 15-year career, I've been Scrum Master on numerous projects with multiple clients. And one scenario I keep seeing cropping up consistently is the massive PBI issue. And this can happen no matter the size of your project, the size of the team, or the duration of the sprint. So in this video, we'll cover a few tips on how to identify this problem and then look at how we can solve this. So the project you're working on could be a very small project spanning just a few weeks or a few sprints, or it could be a massive project spread across months with multiple sprint reviews, multiple team members involved. Now, very often you can come to the end of your sprint and end up with incomplete features that either can't be shipped or features that can be shipped, but they're updates that add no real value to the product owner or the end user or the customer. Now, how did that happen? We had everyone in the team working on the project all week. We didn't have any blockers. We didn't have any urgent bugs or issues hijacking our sprint at the last minute. No, we were all working on the exact items that we said we would be working during our sprint planning, and but we still haven't shipped something for the customer at the end of the sprint review, or what we've shipped is not really usable. And we see this happening quite often. And to be honest, when it does happen, it's not a great feeling for either the product owner or anyone else in the team. It can, in fact, be a bit demoralizing when we're constantly getting to the end of reviews with nothing to actually demo or actually be able to use. So when you do sprint reviews, you want to be able to demo things. Even if it's a small checkbox, it still adds a bit of excitement to the sprint review when you actually demo that. So when you constantly have sprint reviews where you're not able to demo things, it's usually a good indicator that your PBIs need a bit more work, a bit more planning. You could be having the massive PBI issue creeping into your sprint goals each week, and you need to address this. So what can we do to avoid this? First, we obviously need to identify the problem. How do we identify what is a massive PBI? Let's do this by taking a step back. The very first step you start when you start on a task or a work item, or when you start planning for the sprint, is to make sure that there's enough detail in the PBI. Now, there's a great video about this by Luke Cook, one of the other solution architects at SW. And if you haven't seen the video, then please watch this on the SW channel, or have read on SW rules to regarding that rule. So once you ensure there is enough detail in the PBI, you should then reassess the effort that is required for this PBI. Now, there are again several methods and strategies that you can use to estimate efforts, which we covered in a lot of detail in on the rules and the SW TV videos. Now, in spite of all of that, there could be scenarios where there are certain unknowns in the work item, things that you don't know how it works, whether it will work or not, and they stop you from being able to estimate reasonably. In such cases, a good idea to be able to spike that part of the PBI, create a separate task to investigate that. So how does that integration piece really work? So do a separate spike on it, understand how it works, and then you'll be able to estimate that part of the work quite reasonably after that. So once you've done re-estimating the PBI, take a look at that PBI once again from a sprint goal perspective. Now, the general rule of thumb is that you should try to keep your PBI smaller than 2 days of effort. Anything over that means that there's an opportunity to either break this down even further, or you run the risk of not being able to complete that PBI within the sprint review, or being able to or not shipping a useful product. Easier said than done, isn't it? How do you go about doing this exactly? Now, a good way to break things down is to remember that whatever you do ship should be usable from the end user perspective. And while there are guidelines regarding this, there are also no hard and fast rules. So feel free to work with the product owners and your Scrum Masters on your PBIs and each week during each sprint review, and maybe be able to massage them. For example, what I mean is a UI page. You're adding a new UI page, and let's say there are 2 people working on that project in that sprint, and it is quite often the case where one person would split up the effort. One person works on the UI element, the other person works on the actual API calls, etc. And at the end of it, the sprint, we have both the elements working, which is great. Now, the same thing could happen where you're the only one on that project that week, and in which case what you want to try and do is try to massage the PBI a bit to sort of say that you get one shippable element working. So what you want to do is have maybe just a couple of text boxes working fully, where the user is still able to add information there and hit save, and the actual information is saved. Now that's a better user experience than actually having a UI page fully done, but where the save button doesn't work. So have a chat to your product owners, your scrum master, and see what actually works. See what they would like to see at the end of that sprint. What would make it exciting for them. So that's one way of doing it. Now, you may not always work on UI elements or front-end pages to be able to have that. You may be working on critical back-end elements. So what strategy can we use to actually split your PBIs in these cases? For these work items, again, think about what you can demo to your team in the sprint review. Now, you can break your PBIs into chunks where you can incrementally demo things. For example, if it's an API that you're working on, you might be able to just a small part of that API where you can use Postman for your sprint review in the demo, and try to make an API call to the third party and retrieve some data, maybe, if not all. Now, it may not be as exciting as the demoing the complete elements, including the UI, but it's still better than the other option where things are partially built or there's nothing to show to the end user. Let's take another look at another example. You're doing the sprint planning and you see a PBI that says sync data with 0, but nothing much else. So the first step, like we spoke about, we speak to the product owner, try to get a lot more detail. For example, what data should we sync? Is it a one-way or two-way sync? Do we what happens, how often should we sync it? How does that element work? If things are not synced, how do we communicate that to the user? Because that's an important element as well. The users want to know whether the data they've saved into the system has now been pushed to 0 or not. So you ask those questions, you get more information, and once you do that, you realize, hey, this is not a 2-day task anymore. There's more like an 8-day task, which could very well span not just this sprint, but the next one as well. That's the indicator. Time to split that into multiple PBIs, and you go about doing that. Great. But that was step 1. How do we break this into more manageable chunks? Again, we covered a good benchmark thing in terms of what can the user start using or the customer start using at the end of the sprint. What can I demo in my sprint review? For example, you could start off by just having a PBI that shows the sync status of invoices. So you could just go about adding the UI elements where, after you ship it the first week, or if that's the only feature you're shipping that week, the customer still gets to see a page where it might all be just X saying that it's not been synced, but at least they see something tangible on the screen saying that, okay, that's the UI element that tells me whether my data is being synced to 0. Yes, nothing has been synced yet, but that's a flag element there. So that's been shipped. So that's one way of looking at it. Not a lot of effort for that one, but it's still a more powerful demo or more powerful sprint review than not being able to sort of demo anything to the end user at the end of it. So have a read for a rule on this. Have a think about it for your next sprint, and let us know what you think in the comments below. Remember, just because it fits on a page in the UI doesn't mean it has to fit on the one PBI. This is Prem signing off, and thank you for watching.